Hello everybody, this is Video Boy and welcome to Archipelo DevLog number 41. So at the beginning of the video, I'll ask you guys to leave a like. I don't have a goal for this week, but just like it and it'll help the channel grow. And thank you guys last week for reaching the goal. That was pretty awesome. Alright, so once again, this week's episode is going to be pretty packed. I did a lot of adjustments on stuff that I did last week, plus I worked on the login system and everything like I planned for this week. So I'll start by showing you guys the new menu and then I'll talk about the other stuff. So this is the new main menu. So there's a nice animation at the beginning with the game's logo, so it comes down and then it asks the user to press any key, and also if they're on mobile it'll ask them to touch the screen. And as you can see in the background, there's actually a map image that I put a blur on, and it's just moving around. You know, kind of like those old DVD logos that would kind of bounce around the screen. It basically does the same here. So it just bounces around. The camera just moves around the map. Alright, so let's press start. Okay, so now you see some menu buttons. I would just like to say that the graphics for the UI elements for things like buttons, windows, and other stuff are all temporary, just like the chat box in the actual game that you guys seen a few weeks ago when I added that. So it's all temporary, and they will be changed to match the game better. So these are just the default libgdx ones. Alright, so let's go into the login menu first. So now the menus are just basic windows that pop up. It doesn't actually bring you to a new screen. So it just makes it nice and simple. So here you can enter your username, password, and there's also a remember option. So I added that right away this time instead of waiting later on. So I'm going to mess up some values here to show you guys what happens when there's a login error. So if you try to log in, as you can see, there's a little pop-up error message. So that's basically what happens when the server rejects your login request, or even there's some client-side validation beforehand so that we don't have to bother the server if there's something wrong in advance. Of course, the server also checks just to be sure, in case people are trying to hack in or something. So yeah, that's what happens. And also about that, for the server checking, I now check the game version so that it matches the server, and I also check that the user is logging in using a password and username with proper characters. So when people are entering a username, I don't want them to put a bunch of symbols like % signs and things like that. It just doesn't look good. So for a username, I allow all letters, all capital letters, underscores, and all numbers. But that's pretty much all. And for the password, I allow a few symbols, of course. Alright, so let's log in properly. And as you can see, the game loads up as expected. So you may have noticed that the fonts are a little different. And I just changed them so that they have a shadow beneath them instead of an outline. It just looks better in general. Most games do that instead of doing an outline. And the outline on small fonts looks kind of weird. It just kind of messes up the font. And another big thing you may have noticed is I changed some of the art. So when I originally added the blacksmith house, the trees, and the bushes, I accidentally scaled them wrongly. So now they're scaled and they're in the proper way that they're supposed to be. So yeah, it looks pretty good now. And I also added some more art that Max created, and it looks awesome. So there's a hospital now. There's a few new bushes. I think there's a small bush, there's a double bush, and I think there's even another one. And there's the well, of course. Okay, so now let's go back to the main menu to see the register menu. So now if you press escape, a menu pops up. The menu looks glitched right now. I'm having some issues with fonts and stuff, and I'm currently trying to fix it. I think it might actually be a libgdx problem. I checked my code for hours. I couldn't fix this issue. If you've been following me on Twitter, you'd have probably seen I did a tweet on it yesterday. So yeah, it's pretty glitched. But the first option is, it's supposed to say log out, and the second one says back to game. So you can exit back and go back to the game. So the bug affects the whole game when you go back to the main menu and you log out. But if you restart the game, it goes back to normal, so let's do that. Okay, so quickly let's go check out the register menu. So here you'll see it's basically what you would expect. It allows you to create an account. Sadly though, this week I didn't get a chance to work on the item system, but I will do it next week, and like I planned, it'll be a lot easier. I'll talk about it more in the goals section. So at the beginning of this development week, I actually made a lot of changes regarding security in the game. So one really big change I made is in the way passwords are stored in the database. So it was pointed out in last week's devlog's comments by 3RTZ4Z. Sorry, it's a complicated username. I'll put it on the screen. But he said that storing passwords using AES is the wrong way. And the reason for that is because it is recoverable. I know in last week's devlog I said that it's good that it's recoverable because you can get it back and give it back to the user if they forget it and things like that. But that's not really good. If you go on any website, you can't actually recover your password. If you forget your password, you have to change it. So basically that's what we're going to do on... that's what we're doing now since I changed that. So like he suggested, I added hashing using salts. So I use SHA-256 hashing, and I use 100,000 iterations. So for people who know about hashing and they're curious on what I use, that's what I use. So it's very secure. This works great, and your passwords will now be safer. So just say a hacker somehow actually accesses the database and they get access to these hashes and the salt. It would actually take them like thousands of years to actually crack these passwords because they would have to try every combination to see if it matches the hash. But it is still possible to crack, especially if your passwords are weak, so just be sure to make them strong. I also made some small changes to the way I access the database, and I modify it. So there are these things in database security called SQL injections, and they're a really big threat, especially back in the day when databases were first coming out. And basically I completely prevented that with my new method of accessing databases. So to understand SQL injections, you need a basic understanding of databases and queries and things like that. So I won't explain all of that in this video, but basically it allows people to get access to the database and change data on it, and even access user info, and there's a lot more. It's actually pretty crazy. I first learned about it in school this year, and yeah, I was pretty astonished by it, but it's very smart. So I'll link a video in the description if you guys are more curious. You can go check that out. But I did even more changes for the security. So this week I changed the game's connection to using SSL when transferring data to and from the server. So again, I won't go into detail on what SSL is, but basically it encrypts the data so people watching your network cannot actually interpret the data being sent and received on the network. So I'll link a video in the description again showing how SSL works and how it's explained, and how it's basically impossible to crack, at least not with today's computers. But it is the way of the future for internet security, and it's definitely something important that I'm happy to have in the game now. Alright, so that's it for security. Now I want to show you a quick thing that I added to the map editor. So this feature was used for the background image of the main menu in the game. As you saw, there's the blurred image where the camera moves around on. So now in the map editor, if you press print screen, a menu will pop up to choose a location, like a file location. So once you choose it, the editor will save the image at that location of the entire map. So this is good for doing those main menu backgrounds, or I could even, if I do like a walkthrough of the game or something, I could take an image of the whole map and just use that for the walkthrough, instead of trying to like print screen within the game and things like that. The only issue with this is that it can't display entities or other things like that that are added in afterwards, like players or enemies, things like that. But I might also do a print screen feature in the game so you guys can actually do that also. Alright, so on to the goals for this week. You guys can pretty much expect what it's going to be. So in the next 2 weeks I'll be adding the item system into the game and a character editor. So this will probably take 2 weeks to do since it's kind of a lot of things to do, and I'm also fairly busy. Also, I'd like to mention there's not going to be a devlog next week, but I'll probably do more sneak peek videos like I did this week. I'll probably do 1 or 2 of them, and I'll even post some pictures on Twitter, so don't forget to follow me. It's at VideoBoy. The O in VideoBoy in the middle after the I is actually a 0. So yeah, don't forget to follow me and you'll be able to get more sneak peeks. Alright, that pretty much ends off this week's devlog. It's been a long one. It's actually longer than last week. I wasn't expecting it to be this long. But thank you guys so much for watching. And also I want to apologize at the end of this video. The tutorial last week came out on Sunday instead of Saturday. I actually finished making the video on Friday. I just completely forgot to upload it on Saturday. But to make up for it this week, I'm going to give it to you guys early because I won't actually have time to upload it this weekend. So it's going to be out probably today or tomorrow, depending. And also I'd like to thank you guys so much for your support lately on the channel. You guys have been liking the videos a lot, you've been commenting a lot, and also the growth of the channel is about at 1 subscriber a day now. So that's pretty awesome. The channel is really growing quickly. I'd like to thank you guys for that. And yeah, so that's pretty much all I have to say. I'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.